Hi again, everybody. Well, in today's video, I'm going to answer a question that I've been getting a lot of lately. What is the difference between different kinds of PCs? For example, what's the difference between what we call an office PC, used mainly for office applications and email and such, a gaming PC, a content creator's PC, or a server? And I'm going to answer those questions in this video. So without any further ado, off to my right is a quick little presentation showing some details about what differentiates different types of PC systems. The first one I'm going to show is the home office PC. This pie chart illustrates how the distribution of the various components that you would put into it, which is both hardware and software, and what their associated total percentage of the total cost happens to be. For example, if you look at the one over to the right here, processor and motherboard, that represents about 26% of the cost of the total PC. The monitor represents about 20% over here in the left center. And then you see the software represents 12% over to the right again. Now anything that you see in gray background, the labels in gray background, they're pointing to a junction point because they are zero. Those represent areas that do not apply to this type of PC, so there is nothing that was added to it in order to cover those things. For example, streaming capture hardware, the top to the right there. That obviously doesn't make any sense if you're just using it for a home office PC. The same thing with the lower left, the dedicated GPU, and finally, the speaker headphone, although you may want to put that if you want better sound. That might be sort of an optional piece. But generally, the monitor will supply enough sound for somebody who is just trying to use it as an office PC. If they happen to be looking at a corporate video or something, or in your home, somebody looking at YouTube. Now, a gaming PC, basic gaming PC, includes a lot more. Pretty much all the categories except for the stream capture hardware, which I'll mention in a moment when we get to one of the later PCs. But as you can see, the processor and motherboard are pretty much the same, about a quarter of the cost. However, you now have replaced a lot of the other components with a dedicated graphical processing unit or video card. That represents actually generally costing more than the processor and motherboard. That's usually the case, if not a lot more, depending on how extreme the gamer that is using that PC happens to be. The monitor is going to cost a little bit more because you're going to want a higher quality monitor and video if you're playing games. And of course now you're going to need a speaker headphone because you got to wrap that around your head so you can hear good sound. The RAM is going to be about the same cost as the home PC, no big deal. The disk storage is going to be low. The home PC was actually a little bit higher than that. Now moving on to a modified version of the gaming PC. That would be a gaming with streaming. So somebody who's gaming also wants to stream live on the internet as they play the games. And in that case now they've added the cost of streaming hardware over here in the top left. They still have all of the other costs. The streaming hardware, depending on what they want to put in there, can be as much as 18%. The RAM is still about the same. 16 gigabytes tends to be the most that a gamer would put into his PC, his or her. Disk storage is also very low. They only use it for storing games and starting the computer up for the operating system. But again, the dedicated graphical processor unit is a very large chunk of the cost, more so than the processor and motherboard. If we move on to a videography workstation, which is what I'm sitting in front of right now, you're going to have everything but in slightly different proportions. As you'll notice, the processor and motherboard has gone up in percentage while the dedicated GPU has gone down. And that pretty much matches my workstation, but it's also a pretty standard way that it's done. You'd need more processor and motherboard, and the motherboard has to match a processor. That's why I have them both listed together. So you need more processing power if you want to do rendering of videos that you may want to upload to YouTube, for example, like I do. And we don't need as much GPU because the rendering uses it, but not as extensively as some of the games do. But it still has to be fairly moderately powered. And then as you'll notice, the disk storage on the actual PC could still be pretty low. That's assuming that you have some sort of network storage. If you're going to save this with proper backups, you really shouldn't depend on the PC itself. You put a couple of high-speed drives in there to help the rendering go fast, but then once you've completed it, you should offload it onto some other disk, usually network connected. Or you could put a couple of hard drives in here, if that's all you have. If you don't have your own network, that'll be perfectly fine too. So those would tend to be hard drives, as opposed to what I have listed here is probably going to be an SSD, a solid state drive. The RAM, though, goes up a little bit. The RAM has to. You'll want to, for this type of workstation, you tend to be about 32 gigabytes minimum. The software is going to cost you a little bit more too, because now you got to buy special software, which costs a lot more than the games, in order to support the videography things that you want to do. And the rest of it pretty much matches what I've described previously in the previous types. Now finally, we have a server system, which is a lot of videos I've been putting up lately, as you may have noticed. In the server system, you have a lot of grayed out. There's no monitor generally, no keyboard, no mouse, no dedicated GPU. You use the onboard graphics of the processor if it provides it. If not, you buy yourself a low-end graphics card. You don't need a headphone or speakers. You don't need streaming capture hardware generally, unless it's a special purpose, not just a regular disk server, but maybe an application server. Software, most of the software for a file server is free. You can download it, several different versions from different companies that'll supply that for you for free. The power supply is going to go up. You want to have a robust power supply because the thing is going to be on 24/7, 365 days a year. You want it to be able to not be reaching its performance threshold, believe me. The RAM memory is going to be a little bit lower. It'll probably be the same as a gaming PC would be. The big cost, and I have it represented here in the lower left as about 50%, it can easily be, and probably in many cases is a lot higher than that in terms of the total percentage of cost for the entire system. You usually put a lot of hard drive space on these servers because you want them to be shared across the network. Okay, this seems like a pretty good time to show a little demo. There is a really nice free internet tool called PCPartPicker. Let me open that up. Now you really should create an account here if you're going to use it often and you want to save your results without doing like screen captures. I won't do that for this time. I'll just show you. If I go into this wrench here, System Builder, it comes right in and opens up a configuration screen. Right now it shows that estimated wattage that I've selected is 0 watts. I basically haven't done anything with this yet. So the first thing it's showing you is you should pick a CPU. Now I'm going to pick one that is pretty good. I want to go AMD on this one, so let me see which one would be a good one to try. I got to try the Ryzen 7 3700X. I got to try that. Okay, now it shows me where to buy it from. SuperBiz, it shows me this free shipping. And now it shows my wattages up to 65 watts. That'll come in handy later. Now it says choose a cooler. Generally the Ryzen CPUs that are overclockable, which this one definitely is, are not with their own cooler. Therefore I have to pick a cooler for it. I think what I'd like to do is go liquid cooling. So what I'll do is I'll pick, actually that's a pretty good price here for the Cooler Master ML240L, which I've used before and it worked very well. It has some nice PWM fans on it that go from 650 to 2000. I will take that. That'll come from Newegg, which is one of the ones I frequent, so that's pretty good. Motherboards. This is always changing. Now I know I do need a B450 type series chipset, which is what the number stands for. So we have a B450 or X570, it's a different chipset. I don't want to go X570, that's relatively new, and I don't think I actually need some of the other special features it comes with. So let me see what I got here. I like MSI, so I think I'll go with, let me see, $130. That's pretty good. I can have 64 gigabytes. For a gaming PC, which is what I'm building, that's not bad, so I'm going to add that. Now, I need memory. Now, it's this gaming computer that I'm trying to put together. So let me go ahead and choose 16 gigabytes. I do want to get RGB memory, though. So which one has RGB that has 16 gigabytes? A lot of different ones to choose from, but I do want speed 3200. So I'm going to go with the G-Skill Trident Z RGB, 16 gigabyte set. That'll have two 8 gigabyte memory cards with it. Let me add that. $85 is pretty good. Notice how my wattage is now going up. So now it's up to 164. With each addition, the wattage of the power supply is moving up the line. Now I could add additional memory if I wanted to, but there's no reason to do that. That's going to be plenty enough for a gaming PC. And I'll have 2 extra slots because the MSI B450, I believe, comes with 4 slots, but I'm not sure. So let me right click on that and let me open it in a new window. We take a look at this and we can see the specs on it. It looks like it definitely has 4 up in this picture here, but you can come down and look at the detailed specs here and find out for sure. RAM slots are 4. That looks good. Let me close this one and go back to the parts picker. Storage. Now this is a gaming PC, and that particular motherboard does support the M2 type solid state hard disk. So that's probably where I'm going to try to focus. Let me look and see what's available here. Oh, I like the Samsung 970. I have one of those on my other computer, so I'm automatically attracted to it. That's going to have 1 terabyte. That might be a bit too much. Is there a 500? I don't need that much storage. Let me see if there's a 970 Evo. Oh yeah, I passed it. Here it is. 500 gigabyte is better. So let me just pick that. You don't really need more than that. If it was going to be a video editing one, I might pick the larger one. But for this, let me go ahead and pick a cheaper one. Now here's where the money's going to be spent. A video card. I want relatively high end on this, which most gamers want to have. Now, going for a 2080 Ti, as tempting as that is, that's a bit too much. That's like the top end. So what's right below that? Well, I can go, Radeon boards. I want something that's a little bit better than even that. I'm trying to find something that might be in the $600 to $800 range. As you can see, you could spend an awful lot of time here trying to pick the different parts. And this looks like this might be it right here. That's in the range I want, $600 to $800, the higher end of that. The MSI Gaming X Trio. And that's a RTX 2080 Super, which is not as good as the Ti, but it's $400 less. I think I'll go for that, $749. But really good video card. Now my wattage is up to 424. There's some compatibility issues, which I can check on later. Sometimes most of them are nothing, but before you settle on the configuration, you should check that. Let me just keep on going for now. Now a case. A lot of gaming cases to choose from. Let's be fair, it's a gaming computer, so I'm going to want something that has tempered glass on it. So I wish I could filter on this. I think you can, but I'm just going to look down the list. There's certain brands I like more than others. I love Corsair, so if they have a nice case that's tempered glass, like this Corsair Spec, let me open that up and take a look at it. Open in a new window. Let me click on that and take a look at it. Let me just double check to make sure those RGB fans here are full RGB, are not stuck on red. Doesn't really say, there's a comment here that refers to it. The RGB is a nice touch. Oh, by the way, this is where you see the price history. All items have this. They show you the different retailers of it and what their prices have been over the course of several months. It's good to see that if you want to see what the trend is. I think I'll stick with that. I think that's going to be pretty good. Corsair is a nice brand, and I tend to like it, so I'm going to pick that. They're nice to work with, nice to build in. I got to hit add. Now I got to pick a power supply. This is an important feature. This is where understanding how much power I need helps. Let me back up for a second. You'll see what I mean. We're up to what? 424 watts. I like to, if I can afford it, I like to double what it needs. Matter of fact, power supplies, as I show in a previous video, actually function their best when they're at 50% load. So if that's 424, then I would like to get an 850 if I can afford it. What do we got in terms of 850s that are out there? I'd like to get 80 plus gold. Well, right here. Corsair RMX 2018 model, but I don't care about that. 80 plus gold, 850 watts. It's fully modular too. I love fully modular. So it's got 4-star rating, $120, not bad at all. That's my power supply right there. It doesn't change, by the way, getting the power supply, what the estimated wattage. The power supply doesn't draw power, it supplies power. I don't need an optical drive. If it was my personal computer, I might, but that case doesn't support a 5¼ inch optical, so I'd have to think twice about that. But I do need software, an operating system. So I want to run Windows 10 Pro. What have I got in terms of available prices for Pro? So the cheapest Pro looks like this one here. Microsoft Windows 10 Pro. It's probably an OEM model, which means it's just done through a different packaging. You won't see the same packaging as what Microsoft would normally do if you bought it from them. $140, let's go for it. I'm not going to put other software. That would be like Microsoft Office, or if you were doing your own video editing, Cyberlink Power Director, which is the one I use. You can buy all of these things here too. I'm not going to get any of that right now, but I do need a monitor, and I want a really decent monitor here. I'd like to get something that's 144 hertz if possible and 27 inch. But I don't want to break the bank doing it. And I also want a 1440. I don't want just 1080. And I don't need a full 4K. I just need the 2K, which is what a 1440 is. Try to find one that matches those specs for the lowest price. The Acer 27 inch 1440, which is 2K, 144 hertz, 1 millisecond. You know, that's got 5 stars, only $250. I gotta go for that. And not the name brand I'd like, but too bad. It's a good price. I'm going to leave the keyboard out right now. That's usually something you want to get a feel for, you may have on your own. So what do we got here in terms of what this came out to? $2,040.89. That's in the range I was thinking for a gaming PC. Now, let me describe how you could repurpose some of these PCs. For example, let's start off with what I would consider the highest end of this. Absent a very high-end graphic processing unit or video card, a videography workstation usually has something that's at least moderately powered in that area. So in total points of processing capability, I will put it as number 1. If you have one of these, well, you can go ahead for sure, and you can use it as a gaming PC with streaming capability, because you usually have the streaming capability on your videographic workstation as well. Not always, but usually you do. So you can obviously use it for that, understanding that some games will suffer in terms of frame rate because you don't have a super-powered GPU. But they usually are still playable on a videography workstation. Now the gaming PC can also then function, the one with streaming capability that is, can also function as a regular gaming PC. You don't have to be streaming with it, obviously. So that's really the only difference between those two here in the middle, because the one to the right, the green one, is just a basic gaming PC that you would not stream on. You'd play unilaterally at home, for example. And of course, the gaming PC can be used as a home PC, with the understanding that you may have some issues in terms of disk space. So hopefully you have some way of dealing with that. Maybe you have an extra drive you want to put in there just in case you want to use it for home office. Because generally the gaming PC has less space to it in terms of the hard disk than the home office PC. Now, of course, the gaming PC with streaming capability can also be a home office PC. And then to further that, the videography workstation can be not just a gaming PC with streaming, but it can be without streaming, and it can be a home office PC as well. A bit of an overkill using it for that purpose, but it is perfectly viable and will work. Finally, I'm throwing the server system off by itself. Although any of these you could probably turn into a server system if you put enough hard drive space in them. It's usually not worth it. You're not going to want all that extra hardware, all that extra processing power or graphics processing units or any of the other hardware that I mentioned earlier to be in a server. It's usually a stripped down system that is only meant to serve disk to network users. Now finally, what I have up here is a chart showing the summary of the cost that I use as the basis for all of these pie charts that you saw here. Just took rough guesses, no tax included, no shipping included, because I don't know what your situation would be. You may not have to pay either one of those depending on the state you live or how far you are from the place where you can buy this from. So these are just estimates. And as you can see, if you look at the bottom line here, a home office PC tends to hover around 500. It's really from 4 to 6, but 500 seems to be the average. When you get into a gaming PC, though, you're now talking about something that is going to cost you a couple of $1,000s, mostly because of the graphics processing unit that you put into it. Now, if you get into a gaming PC with Stream, the bottom line to that one is going to probably more approach closer to the higher end of $2,000, closer to $3,000. And if you go for a videography workstation, you're talking $3,000 at a minimum. Now, the server system is a special case as well. I'm showing one here that comes out to about $1,200. Now, that's assuming we're only spending about $600 on the hard drives. And I took this as an example from the one I'm building right now, which has 4 Seagate Iron Wolf hard drives meant for servers. They wound up costing me about $150 a piece for 6 terabytes. Someday, I'm going to probably upgrade that, and I'll talk about that in one of those videos as I give the concluding remarks. That cost can go way up depending on how much hard drive space you put in there. That ends this video and gives you a brief oversight of the different types of PCs that are out there and shows you the relative cost difference between them and feature difference as well. If you got anything out of this video, again, I would really appreciate it, and it would really help my channel grow and provide better content going forward. If you subscribe to my channel, my little head will pop up here in a moment. Just click on that, follow along, and subscribe. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe. You have 2 choices to it. You can either choose to get email notifications or not. All I'm asking you to do is subscribe. If you want to get notifications, that's up to you. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll talk to you next time.